Okay, so I was trying to start at Mom's entryway to the road that goes down to their house, and you would go another almost half a mile down a hill to their house. So now I'm going to drive what they would have walked to and from school, and the speedometer says 39112. 39112. So let's see here, and I'm going to go at I'm going to try to go at 2 miles an hour to give an idea of maybe how long it would take to walk if they were at a casual walk to school. But my mom and her family grew up in this holler down in Crab Orchard, and some people in the area call it Redden's Ridge, and my mom's family were the Reddens. Okay, there was 13 kids in the family. They had had a total of 15 kids, but 2 did not survive childbirth. They grew up in a house very similar to a log cabin, but it was slat boards, and they had to walk a distance to a natural spring to get water, and they would carry 2 gallons or more each trip to and from the spring, and they would go 2 or 3 times a day to this spring. And I'll try to mention when we're at the road that would have went down to the spring. And then that road was really steep, down this really steep hill that they had to walk up and down. Then they had to get off of the road and go through the woods and across the little creek, and on the other side of the creek was the natural spring. I've kind of went up to 5 miles an hour, so I'm gonna try to slow down a little bit. And they did not have electricity in their house. They used oil lamps. They did not have an electric stove. They had a wood burning stove that they cooked on. They grew their own gardens, about 2 to 3 acres worth of garden, and canned food. They had pigs a few times that they would feed and then butcher at the end of the season, but normally they didn't have meat, and normally it was just what they raised in the garden. And they had chickens, so they would collect eggs. But they're just out in the country. It's just way out in the country. This is West Virginia, in the Crab Orchard area. She had cousins that also lived in this holler. Now they lived at different branches that went down over the hill. And I think, let me see. I don't think that's the spot. Things have grown up so much since I was here as a kid, so I'm trying to rack my brain as to what am I looking at, because they've changed. They used to have these huge trees on the edges of the road, but they came out and timbered in the last 30 years. So a lot of those huge trees that I remember don't stand anymore. They took them out. So their cousins were right. There was 2 roads on down here that branched off, one to the right, one to the left. So they had a set of cousins on one side down over the hill, and a set of cousins on the other side down over the hill. Like I said, it's grown a lot. Then they've added, getting up to 5 miles again, then they've added other roads where they tend to the gas lines and the power lines. So there's a lot more roads that shoot off from the sides. So I have a little bit of a problem trying to figure out which one's which, as to what I remember as a child. But they had a huge flatbed truck that you can haul things, vehicles and everything else on, and all the kids would pile on the back of this truck when they would go places. And sometimes their dad would find a big appliance box, and he would put it on the back of the truck, and the kids would climb into the box for shade as they drove. And I remember her talking about her brother, I can't remember if it was Little Bud or Tink, I can't remember which one it was. When their dad was driving, some of the branches were low enough being on the back of that truck, they could reach the branches. And he had grabbed a hold of a branch. This is the split. This is the split right here. There's two roads right here. One to the right and one to the left. The one to the right goes over the hill, down a steep hill to a spring, and the one on the left went to the other place where the other family members lived. But he had grabbed a hold of that branch hanging over the road, and the truck kept going, and he was just hanging there by the tree branch over the road, and it was really high up because he was in the back of the truck. And all the kids started yelling at their dad to stop the truck, because one of the brothers was hanging in the tree. And then their dad slowly backed the truck back up underneath him so that he could drop back down on the back of the truck. But I have shifted up a little to 5 miles, so I've sped up a little bit here. Now, they definitely wouldn't be walking no 5 miles an hour. I mean, so I'm trying to slow down. I think a healthy person can walk a mile in 15 minutes, is what they say. And then kids would have goofed around and been slow unless they knew they were going to miss their bus or the weather was bad. You never lingered if the weather was bad. And Mom would talk about them wearing socks on their hands, and when the school bus finally arrived, sometimes they pulled the socks off their hands so kids wouldn't know they didn't have gloves. Okay, he's pulling up. Alright. Yeah, he's got a spot to get over. That's good. Thanks. And I'm trying to think. But a lot of these roads were built in here later. Timbering, utilities, four-wheelers came through and made roundabout roads for four-wheeling. There's a road here on the right that we're coming up to. A little dirt spot right there on the side. That's the road that goes up to the cemetery. There's an old cemetery up there. There's not very many grave markers left. I know they didn't relocate the bodies, so if they ever go through that area, you'll hear about it in news, finding all these bodies in a holler. Well, it used to be a cemetery, so no murder victims there, just a cemetery. But people have not treated it kindly, and things have really been wasted. But there's the power lines, like I was talking about. They've stripped and cut through for lines, and but they would walk this every day to and from school, and it didn't matter, rain, shine, snow. And back then the girls were forced to wear dresses to school, and the boys could wear pants, so they didn't care that they were tormenting and torturing the girls. I mean, come on, what kind of mentality is that? It's more decent for girls to look like girls in dresses and boys in pants, and let's torment them by freezing their legs off and giving them frostbite and getting them sick and everything else because they're girls. That's just absurd. From where I'm sitting, the devil was doing all he could to torment women because he was mad a woman brought forth Christ. That's how I see it. This is the road. This is where they would have caught the bus. So that's 39113 is where I'm at on the speedometer, and it was 8 minutes and 30 some seconds, and I'm still recording. And we roughly went between 2 to 5 miles an hour. So later I will try to figure out how long it may have taken them to walk and the distance they would have traveled in one day, going back and forth to carry all the water to the house, not counting the hill to the spring or the hill to their own house. In both places, anywhere between half a mile to a mile on down, out of sight, where we couldn't record. So it was a lot further than what we drove if we would have added in the other distance, but there was a big metal gate blocking, so we couldn't do that. And last time I walked the road to my mom's house where she grew up, it was so rutted out, I don't think you could take a vehicle down that hill. So, but I'm gonna get off now.